What is it that gives us a very strong indication that Matt Hancock was lying when he was talking about what commitment he made concerning testing people for COVID before they were discharged from hospital into care homes? My name's Mike Cashman, political commentator, on occasion satirist. If you find this video useful, please subscribe to the channel. So, Matt Hancock said that his recollection of a meeting in March was that he didn't say people were being tested before they went into care homes, when discharged from hospital, but rather that he was going to build the capacity and then do this when he could. Now, that I do not believe can be true, and I'll explain why in this video. It should actually be a simple matter of establishing what happened in that March meeting. So I'm making some assumptions. I'm assuming that Hancock and Cummings and Johnson cared about this, treated it as important, treated it as significant. So I'm assuming that this conversation in March 2020 wasn't just a casual chat as they were wandering down the road. It wasn't just, oh, people going to care homes. Are they tested? Oh, leave it with me, boss. All under control. I'm assuming that it was more formal than that. Now, it should be a case that it's unnecessary for Matt Hancock to stand up and say, my recollection is. He's doing that in public, in the briefing room. It should be a simple matter of saying, here are the minutes of that meeting. The officials who are present made sure that it was clearly understood what was agreed. This is what they noted down, and therefore this is the commitment that Hancock did or didn't make at the time. One problem with this government, with this cabinet particularly, is that they have very little real business experience actually making anything happen in any field other than politics and journalism. And I do mean in significant organisations, not just in selling get-rich-quick schemes on the internet. Why does that matter? Because if you've worked for a significant organisation of a few thousand people, then you understand some of what's necessary for leadership of large numbers of people, which is kind of important if you're in charge of the country. I haven't checked the CV of every cabinet member, so maybe I've missed one or two, but in all honesty, there is, as I say, very little substantial business experience, very little organisational maturity, and hence we don't see people going for that obvious answer. Some people would say, oh, minutes of meetings, isn't that unnecessary bureaucracy? No, it isn't, because that simple task would mean that if you're in a position of saying, well, what exactly was agreed, you can go back and check, and if it's not satisfactory, if there was any misunderstanding, you can say, I hadn't realised that that's all he was saying. Right, there's more action needed. Let's follow up on this. So I'm assuming, as I say, that there was a serious meeting about it with this on the agenda. For Johnson and Cummings, going into that meeting, there will have been one of two possibilities that they were anticipating. Possibility one is that Hancock would say, yes, it's all happening, don't worry, everybody discharged from hospital into a care home is tested for COVID first. Possibility two is that Hancock would have to acknowledge that that wasn't happening, in which case they would want to know, and he would know that they would want to know, well, in that case, where are you in the progress towards that? By what date will you have that established? And what are the interim arrangements going to be so that COVID is not seeded into care homes from people who have been infected or discharged from hospital infected with COVID? Assuming that all parties were treating it seriously, it has to be one of those two possibilities. Now, let's look at it from Hancock's point of view. He is clear that he was not saying possibility one. This is all happening now. Therefore, that only leaves us possibility two. But where is the accompanying detail? I'm assuming that there's no minutes of the meeting, otherwise he would have produced them by now. But if, in fact, he was saying, or his interpretation of what he was saying was, we're on the way towards achieving it, maybe he said, it's all okay, and he had his fingers crossed behind his back. But that's not what he's telling us. If, indeed, his position was, it's not happening at the moment, other things need to be done, it's going to be, whatever it might be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that is happening routinely, and therefore the interim arrangements until that point in terms of isolation, guidance, whatever, are as follows. If that was the case, he would have that accompanying detail. He would have declared it to us. But we know that that's not the case. I'm not saying that I believe everything that Dominic Cummings told us in his select committee hearing, but we have a consistent picture here, actually, in terms of, this question of accompanying detail. A consistent picture from Hancock and from Cummings is that the meeting took place and there was no such accompanying detail. All we're getting is Hancock's May 2021 retrospective recollection of a meeting that took place 14 months ago. But it's not credible that they'd have that discussion and not be concerned about, well, in that case, what is the path towards getting that done? When is that going to be happening? When are you going to come back and report to us and tell us that it is happening? It's not credible that they'd talk about this and not be interested in when this was going to be resolved. And so, in the absence of any other information, I can see no conclusion other than that Matt Hancock is lying now. We know that he's prepared to change his story retrospectively. Quite recently, he changed his account of why India was not put on the red list until late in April. So he is an unreliable witness, but on this particular point, I cannot see any other explanation but that he was lying when he said that he made no such promise. And if any other evidence emerges, very happy to bear that in mind. But in terms of what we know at the moment, I can see no explanation other than that Matt Hancock was lying. If this has been useful, please subscribe to the channel. This one is called I Don't Beg Pardon. It deals with matters of COVID generally. Full title being based on Cummings' story from a year ago. Full title being I Don't Beg Pardon, I'm Talking Bollocks from the Rose Garden, as indeed he was. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more.